So there's a lot going on today, and it's all going to involve lawsuits, two different lawsuits, one that is going to be filed and one that has been filed. It was filed a long time ago. As a matter of fact, it was filed 5 years ago by Doug Turpin and his wife, Nicole. They filed a lawsuit against Charlotte Latin. Some of you may remember this a long time ago about the parents suing them and how crazy woke they believed that Charlotte Latin had gotten, and talking about all kinds of stuff about white supremacy and whites are bad. And allegedly, I want to say this allegedly, um, and a lot of things going on within the school that the Turpins did not agree with. And when they voiced their concerns, they were allegedly expelled for voicing their concerns, even though they told there would be no retribution. So they filed a lawsuit. And then the lawsuit was kicked out by Superior Court. Then it went to the appellate court. It was kicked out again. Well, just now, the state Supreme Court said, no, the Turpins, you are actually allowed to sue Charlotte Latin, even though it's a private school. So joining us now is Doug and Nicole Turpin, as well as their lawyer, Jonathan Vogel. And we're going to have a very extensive interview with them tonight. And then later on, we're going to get in with Irina Zarutska. First of all, everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. And Jonathan, I want to start with you as the attorney. What is the big get? What is the big thing that comes out of this state Supreme Court's ruling?
Well, the ruling from the Supreme Court enables us to start the case, Brett, if you can believe it. We filed the lawsuit 4.5 years ago and had it dismissed at the outset by the trial court judge here in Mecklenburg County. So we're really just beginning the case now, which means that we start a process of discovery that enables us to request internal documents. We're going to look for the emails, the text messages, the calendar entries. We're going to take sworn depositions of the head of school, the head of middle school, the 20-some odd board of trustees who we named as defendants in the lawsuit as well. This is our opportunity to obtain evidence that the other side has to enable us to prove the various allegations that we made. And the claims that we have, if successful, and I believe we will be successful, will enable us to obtain damages in the form of lost tuition payments. That damage calculation could be tripled because we have a statutory claim for unfair and deceptive business practices. Attorney's fees are available if we prevail on that claim of unfair, deceptive trade practices. Our claims for defamation against each member of the Board of Trustees and against the head of school can yield emotional distress damages and damages for humiliation and specific pecuniary damages of loss of reputation. And so there's a lot to be gained. But even more importantly, Brett, is the message that it sends to parents and schools alike, that parents can hold the schools accountable. A set of facts like the Turpin's set of facts will enable parents to hold schools accountable. And schools are getting the lesson they don't want to be sued. So they are learning from this case that they need to take certain actions in compliance so that they can avoid some of these things. In other words, when it comes to their enrollment agreements, they should comply with their enrollment agreements. They shouldn't be expelling children for reasons that are unrelated to anything in the enrollment agreement that provides a basis for expelling the children, right? Not liking a parent's opinion or not liking that a parent has asked a question about his or her child's curriculum, culture, well-being in the classroom. That does not justify expulsion when your enrollment agreement says that we can only expel kids if we think that the relationship has become impossible. There's obviously nothing impossible in a relationship when a parent is asking questions about their child's education.
So now with Doug Turpin, I want to speak to you. 5 years ago, when all this started coming together, when you filed the lawsuit, did you think this was going to be rather easy and maybe over and done with in 9 months? Did you think, you know what, this is going to take several years? Did you think it was going to be easy? Did you think it was going to be difficult? Just walk us through the process from where you decided to actually file this lawsuit some 5 years ago.
You know, we didn't take this lightly. We tried for about 6 months to engage in some kind of a dialogue with the board, the school, and to try to avoid having to do this. But they gave us absolutely no option, no alternative there whatsoever to have any kind of a reasonable discussion about what they had done to our family, to acknowledge that it was wrong, the slander, the defamation, all of these things were, cancel culture had struck home. And it was truly shocking to see this kind of behavior in response to a bunch of parents that simply wanted to have a conversation and some dialogue, and for which, they promised us there'd be no retaliation allowed. They promised us in writing that they wouldn't do exactly what they did. So we didn't enter this lightly, nor did we think that it would be easy or inexpensive. What I didn't expect was there was going to be politically motivated reasoning from lower court judges, where they basically would just, not use the facts in the law and the obvious interpretation of the law, and just dismiss our case. And the lower court judge in Charlotte said, well, they're a private school. They can do anything they want. Basically, I guess they can commit slander and defamation and fraud and unfair and deceptive trade practices. They can breach contracts, and there's nothing you can do. And then at the appeals court, we had some judges that were released a just shocking political rant there that were, Democrat judges that basically just said, well, they're a commercial. You can't call a school and judge them as a commercial organization, and just basically swept everything under the rug and dismissed the case, even though the law says if you properly stated a claim, you get to move on. They weren't going to allow us to do that. So we didn't think we were going to have to go to the Supreme Court. We didn't expect that we wouldn't be able to move in with our lawsuit or spend 5 years, but we were determined to make sure that this couldn't happen to another family, that schools would be put on notice that your contracts and your representations and promises mean something.
When other parents saw what happened to your children, did they still support you, or were they scared for retribution? Was there much support?
Well, we had a very large number of parents that were part of Refocus Latin. There was an uproar. I mean, everybody kept, it was all organically formed. Not all the parents really even knew each other, but we were just all experiencing this same shocking things. When you see a picture of Jesus with his throat cut and black blood pooling down his shirt and the words "God is dead" that they say is artwork, or a picture of a police officer with "all cops are bastards" and he's dressed as a pig, and a gay sex manual with graphic pictures of in the young children's section of the library of how to go ahead and have gay sex, and all of these crazy things that were just pushing through the school, taking down all the curriculum, not being transparent, gaslighting parents about what they were doing. I mean, it was enough to create a very large and organic pushback. And all we wanted to do was have one simple question asked and answered: what is it that you intend to teach our children, so we can make decisions for ourselves if this is any longer a school that we want to be a part of? They didn't want to do that.
Welcome back to Breaking with Brett Jensen, as I continue our interviews and conversation with Doug and Nicole Turpin, as well as their attorney, Jonathan Vogel, who won a state Supreme Court ruling that allows them to continue their lawsuit against Charlotte Latin. Jonathan, as their attorney, walk me through the process after the Superior Court kicked it out and you went into the state appellate court's hearings. Did you have any confidence? Did you think, this is going to be fine? Or did you think this was going to be an uphill battle all the way and the odds were stacked against you?
Oh, no. We were very optimistic appealing the dismissal from the trial court 4 years ago, because the standard to meet to move forward in a case is a pretty low bar. We just had to state facts where taken as true, our allegations taken as true, and all inferences drawn in our favor would state legal claims. Oh, Brett, I've been practicing law for over 30 years, and I drafted a complaint to start the lawsuit off that's 60 pages long, chock full of facts, 9 different claims initially, and the idea that virtually every claim would be dismissed and stop us in our tracks was, an absolute shock. And I knew it was wrong as a matter of law. So we were very optimistic when we took the appeal, and we're extremely disappointed when we did not prevail at the Court of Appeals, lost in a split decision. The panel that we had split 2-1 against us. We were extremely disappointed, but felt that there was some kind of ulterior motive. It just seemed a little too political to us, the way that decision was written. In fact, it was written so politically and strangely that the Court of Appeals ordered that panel to do their decision over again. That's how off that decision was, and that's a very strange thing to have ordered. So the panel redid its decision. It was a little less political when they redid the decision, but it was a 2-1 decision with one judge on that panel, Judge Julie Flood, dissenting. So that got us to the Supreme Court, where we remained optimistic, and we were very glad that we got a fair shake at the Supreme Court, prevailing 5-2, and being able to proceed on 5 of our claims, some of the most important and potent claims that we have.
Doug, I'm curious, after the lawsuit was filed and all the court hearings started happening, did Charlotte Ladin ever reach out to try and maybe resolve this situation?
God, no. I mean, they were contemptuous and arrogant there. I tried to reach out after this and have a conversation. That board promised us there'd be no retaliation when they invited us to come and speak with them. And, that was something we took seriously. And I tried to reach out to every single one of them and have a conversation. And they wanted to have none of it. One guy, Rail Gorelick, he told me that I was interrupting his family time while they were watching a Panthers game, and he couldn't be bothered to go ahead and talk to me about my children being expelled. And so I said, well, if it's an inconvenient time, can I call you later? He goes, no, there's no point. I'm with Denny and Chuck Baldecki, Denny O'Leary, the board chair. It basically it's like, your children don't matter. You're bothering me. It was stunning to see 2 parents that had never done anything wrong. We followed every procedure, and our children were singled out, in our mind, very obviously, in an act of cancel culture. They wanted to send a message that says, anybody else asking questions we don't want to answer, you're next. Who else wants to go ahead and dare to challenge our reformation of an apolitical classical education school that measured children on merit, taught them Judeo-Christian values? We're turning it into a woke indoctrination center. Anybody else who has any questions, you're out too. Yeah, it wasn't, if you think about it, I just emailed the school and asked them for a conversation when my son at story time told me that he was being told he could not go ahead and use the bathroom, and he couldn't drink water. All Republicans were white supremacists. And he asked me, he said, Dad, is there something wrong with me because I'm white? And I was like, well, of course not. And he goes, well, my teacher makes me feel like there's something wrong, that all white people have done terrible things and we're terrible people. And that she said all Republicans were white supremacists. And is that true? And I was like, well, no, son. And he said, Dad, I'm a boy, right? And I'm like, well, wait, what? Yeah. And he said, why are you asking me that? He goes, well, am I gay? And I was like, why are you asking me this? And I said, well, because the teacher said that if you like hanging out with boys, he's 11, then, maybe you're gay and you should think about that. And I said, no, son. I mean, that doesn't mean that at all. So what parent in that situation wouldn't reach out to a school and say, hey, I'm concerned. This is what my son's telling me. They promised us there'd be no retaliation, no blowback in writing in an email if I came in and talked with them. But as soon as I got in there, they said, well, your son's a liar. I mean, basically, and we know he's a liar because we believe our teachers, and you've been plotting against the school. You have been trying to basically undermine all of the virtuous things we're doing. I recorded the conversation because I thought it was so strange and fishy the way they were asking. And, he's work expelling your two kids from the only school they'd ever known right now.
Welcome back to Breaking with Brett Jensen as I continue our conversation with Doug and Nicole Turpin and their attorney, Jonathan Vogel, who won a state Supreme Court ruling that allows them to continue their lawsuit against Charlotte Latin for a lot of different things that they were upset about, including expulsion of their children, and they believe defamation, as well as a lot of things going on in the classrooms that they believe that were also inappropriate. So, Nicole, I want to talk with you. Do you remember the morning or the moment when your children were expelled, and how did your children handle that as the mother?
Well, I can remember that morning like it was yesterday. It's something that just will never leave me. Doug called me and he said, Nikki, you need to get down to the school now and meet me there. Our two children have been expelled and they need to leave immediately. So, of course, the shock, I was just numb. I was in such shock. And while this was going on, our two small children were being asked to empty their lockers without any explanation. And then they were led out by a security guard like criminals. And when we went to pick them up, these little children had such bewildered expressions on their faces. And all the way home, they were saying, Mom, what's going on? I mean, did we do something wrong? And we had to look them in the face and tell them that the only school they had ever known, they were not welcome back in it anymore. And we were helpless. They just broke down sobbing, and all we could do was hold them because we were in shock too. We didn't know what to do at that point. And if it could get any worse, a couple of days later, they called from Charlotte Latin and said, you need to pick up the rest of your children's things. They gave me a teacher's address, and I can remember driving down the road in the dark. It was evening time, and I met her in this dark cul-de-sac, and she proceeded to pull out a black trash bag out of her trunk with the rest or the remnants of our children's lives at Charlotte Latin and wish me good luck. And all I could think about was the headmaster at the beginning of every year telling us how very special and valuable each and every child is in this school. And yet ours has just been thrown out like yesterday's trash. Literally, there's things given to me in a trash bag. And they've done nothing wrong. It was just heartbreaking.
And we hadn't done anything wrong either. There was absolutely nothing we didn't do besides follow the exact request of the board. They promised us no retaliation. They said, take any concerns to the administration. You won't be retaliated against. The contract said that. It guaranteed the right to the parents to be able to have conversations and not be retaliated against. I simply brought concerns up that any parent, there's no parent out there that wouldn't have reacted to what their young son is telling them about what's going on and how he's being mistreated and how he's being taught, and not reach out and say, can we have a conversation about this? That's all we did. So for a conversation they didn't want to have, they expelled our children to make an example of them.
Jonathan, I want to circle back with you as the attorney. Are you fairly confident that Charlotte Latin hasn't wiped all the servers clean so that way you can't get the internal emails and all the other messages? Are you pretty confident that they haven't done so?
Well, they better hope that they didn't wipe their drives clean. At the outset of the lawsuit, as is typical in litigation, we sent them a litigation hold notice. It's essentially a letter saying that you have been sued or you're about to be sued, and we're directing you to maintain all your internal records. That is typical. You don't have to send that kind of notice at the outset of a lawsuit, but doing so puts them on notice. And so there are consequences for a party who destroys relevant documents, and that can be held against them. And there are potential sanctions. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope they haven't destroyed relevant documents. We want to win this case on the merits. But if they did take those kinds of actions, they're in deep trouble. And if I were them, I'd be looking for a way to get out of this lawsuit instead of continuing to litigate it. But we're going to be aggressive, Brett. We're looking to uncover what they have, and we're looking to prevail in litigation.
Doug, it's been 5 years already just to win the right to sue Charlotte Latin. If this takes another 2 years, are you prepared to go the distance?
You can count on it. Hey, we've invested a lot of time and money and effort in here, not only just for our family, but everybody else's. I've formed a C3 nonprofit. It's a state policy network, partner member there to go ahead and protect other people. Because after cancel culture struck home, we realized, it's not everybody else's problem to deal with. It's something that we all have to strike back against. Because if they can deny everybody free speech and just impose their will with cancel culture, then that's a really dangerous and horrible America for everybody. And it was happening way too many times. So I am devoting my money, my time, my resources, and partnering with organizations all across the country, donors all across the country, to try to make sure that people can be free to say and think what they want in our country without having their lives destroyed by radical woke extremists or political indoctrination imposed on them. Instead of Latin promised an apolitical classical education school that measured children on merit and taught them Judeo-Christian values, they turned into something that we just didn't recognize. If they're going to do that, they need to be honest and transparent and be willing to have conversations with parents without expelling kids if they don't like what they're asking.
Nicole, obviously this was 5 years ago, but how are the kids doing now? Did they finally eventually settle in?
I mean, it's how many years later? 5 years later. They're doing good. Our daughter's in college now. She's in her first year of college, and our son is going into 11th grade. But, they're lucky that they had supportive parents, and they had a close-knit family that stood by them. And the reason we have Coalition for Liberty is we want to help other people that maybe don't have that support and are going through mental hardship with what they've experienced. We want to help other children just as much as we've helped ours.
And we want to deter the people from practicing cancel culture.
Yeah.
So when I formed Coalition for Liberty, it was with that idea of protecting the everyday person. And you can see on our website, we've had just horrific things happen to people where they've been lied and defamed, lost their jobs by just crazy extremists that just wanted to attack them for simply having an opinion. And if you sue them and make sure it gets lots of media attention, then that will deter them. There are other people that we're supporting now where their schools have done things like this to them. And we want the message to be loud and clear that there is somebody that will help them. And so if anybody wants to support Coalition for Liberty, we're able to take care of this for our family. And we sure want to help everybody else to make sure that schools don't toss children out like they're yesterday's garbage just because they don't like our views.
Doug and Nicole Turpin, as well as their attorney, Jonathan Vogel, I really, really do appreciate you guys joining me for this very long and extensive interview. I think it was important, and I think it was important for the parents to hear. And again, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.